The last normal night of my life started with rain. Nothing dramatic, just the soft kind, misting against the kitchen window and turning the city lights outside into blurry smears of gold and red. The kids were in the living room, half watching some cartoon, half arguing about who got the bigger half of the blanket. She was late. Again, her plate of pasta sat cooling across from me, the steam long gone, the sauce congealing at the edges. Her chair, that empty chair, felt louder than the TV. The hum of the fridge, the faint drip from the leaky tap, the cartoon laughter in the next room, somehow all of it just made her absence clearer. I checked the time on my phone. 8:42 p.m. She was supposed to be home by 7. There was a time when she would text if she was 10 minutes behind. Traffic, I miss you. Little things like that. Lately the silence had stretched, first 10 minutes, then 30. Then whole evenings where running late, don't wait up came hours after she was already gone. I told myself it was work. I told myself everyone goes through seasons. I told myself not to be that husband, the jealous one, the paranoid one, But the distance had crept in like fog. Her laughter got quieter, her phone got closer to her face, her kisses got quicker. At some point, without either of us saying it, our hugs turned into brief collisions of routine instead of homecomings. The kids finished dinner first. Liam, 11, stacked his plate in the sink without being asked. Mia, 8, wandered over to the window, tracing lines in the condensation, her reflection overlapping with the city lights outside. "Is Mom working late again?" she asked. I dried my hands on a towel and forced my voice to sound normal. "Yeah, big project, remember." She nodded, accepting it like kids do, trusting the story you hand them because they don't know how to doubt you. By the time I tucked them into bed, the rain had grown steadier. The hallway light cast a soft yellow wedge into their room, painting their faces in warm shadow while they slept. I stood there longer than usual, listening to their breathing, the traffic outside, the rain against the glass. Our bedroom felt colder than the rest of the apartment. Her side of the bed was a mess of rumpled sheets and half-folded laundry. I sat on my edge, the same spot I always took out of habit, pulled my phone from my pocket, and finally let myself feel it. That low, heavy unease, the quiet thought I'd been pushing away for months. What if it wasn't just work? Her last text sat at the top of our thread. "Running late, don't wait up for dinner, love you." It was the "love you" that bothered me. Not because she'd said it, but because it read like punctuation now, a period at the end of a sentence, automatic and hollow. I typed, "Everything okay?" Paused, deleted it. I typed again. "How late are you going to bathe?" Stared at it until the words blurred, deleted it too. Instead, I scrolled up. 2 weeks, a month, 3 months. The pattern wasn't dramatic. No screaming fights, no slammed doors. Just tiny, consistent exits. Less eye contact, more "I'm tired, can we talk tomorrow?" More nights where she came home, after midnight, smelling faintly of a perfume that wasn't hers. That was the thing I couldn't explain away. It clung to her hair and her coat like someone else's presence, faint but undeniable. And when I asked, softly, carefully, not wanting to sound accusatory, she frowned like I'd accused her of a crime. "It's just someone in the elevator," she'd said once, shrugging off her coat. "You're overthinking." Maybe I was, but the human brain notices when a pattern. When the person who used to fall asleep with her head on your chest starts turning away first. I lay back on the bed, the ceiling fan circling lazily above me, throwing slow-moving shadows across the walls. The city hummed outside. The rain whispered against the windows. At 11:13 p.m., my phone finally buzzed. My heart jumped before my mind even registered the sound. I grabbed it. Her name lit up the screen, one new message. I tapped it open, already exhaling, already lining up the familiar excuses in my head. Traffic, office drinks, late meeting, I'm exhausted, sorry, I'll make it up to you this weekend. Instead, I saw a single line. "We're in Hawaii, take care of the kids." That was it, no explanation, no apology. "No, I'll explain everything, please don't be mad." My brain rejected it at first, like a glitch. I instinctively checked the sender, even though her name was right there, the same little contact photo of her smiling in the spring sun, hair loose, eyes squinting at the camera. "We're in Hawaii." The word sat there, cruel and small, like a stone in my throat. I read it again. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I typed, "What do you mean we?" But even as I did, another thought broke through the fog. Why Hawaii? Why now? Why text instead of call? I hit send. The message whooshed out. The typing indicator never appeared. Minutes passed. 10, 20, 40. The rain became white noise. The city outside might as well have been on mute. I scrolled up again, my eyes burning. The last time she'd mentioned Hawaii was months ago. She'd shown me photos on her phone of some resort one of her coworkers had visited. White sand, blue water, umbrella drinks. Can you imagine? She'd said, smiling faintly. Us there with the kids. I'd laughed, maybe next year, after the bonus. She'd nodded, but her eyes had drifted away. I stared at the new message until the letters started to shake. I didn't cry, not yet, I just felt hollow. I tried calling once, twice, 3 times. Each time it went straight to voicemail. Her voice, cheerful, recorded months ago, filled my ear. Hey, it's Anna, leave a message. I hung up before the beeps. In the living room, the clock above the TV ticked too loudly. I walked in a slow circle, past the kids' backpacks by the door, the shoes they'd kicked off without untying the laces, the half-finished school project on the coffee table. The life we had built together was all here. Physical, solid. She was gone in Hawaii, with someone, that we pressed against my chest like a weight. On the kitchen counter, her key ring sat in the small ceramic bowl by the door, house keys, mailbox key, the little metal tag from that weekend trip years ago when we'd sworn we'd always choose each other first. She had left her keys. She had taken herself. I thought about waking the kids, telling them right then. But what would I say? Mom went to Hawaii sounded like a joke. Mom left us sounded like a nightmare. Instead, I pulled a chair to the window and sat down, staring at the reflection of my own face in the glass. Outside, the rain slid down in thin, uneven streams, catching the streetlights on the way. Somewhere hours behind us, under a different sky, she was awake. On a plane, in a hotel room, on a beach, with him, the thought arrived fully formed. I didn't know his name, I didn't know his face, but I knew he existed. People don't text their husbands, we're in Hawaii by accident. My phone lay face up on the table beside me, her message still open. I watched the screen go dim, then dark, my own faint reflection hovering over the words. For a long time, I sat there in that gray-lit room, listening to the rain and the soft ticking of the clock, waiting for a second message that never came. When the first streak of pale morning light began to push the darkness back, thin and colorless, I was still in that chair. The text burned into my mind, knowing that when the kids woke up, I would have to find words for something I barely understood. And somewhere between the ticking seconds and the slow brightening of the sky, one terrible, simple question took shape and refused to leave. Had she been leaving us long before she ever got on that plane? I heard Mia's footsteps before I saw her. Soft, dragging, socked feet on the hardwood. I straightened in the chair, my neck stiff, my back aching in that way it does when you fall asleep sitting up. The city outside was washed in early gray, the rain reduced to a light. The apartment smelled faintly of last night's coffee and cold pasta. Dad. Her voice was small, still tangled with sleep. I turned. She stood in the hallway, hair a wild, tangled halo, clutching her stuffed rabbit to her chest. Her eyes flicked from me to the empty bedroom door behind me. Is Mom back? The question hit harder than the text. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. For one suspended second, it felt like time waited with me, watching to see what I would do. I swallowed. No, I said, my voice rough. She had to go on a trip. Mia frowned. Without us. Yeah, I said. Without us. She shuffled closer, still clutching the rabbit, and peered at my phone on the table. Did she text? I locked the screen without thinking. Yeah. What did she say? The truth sat behind my teeth like glass. We're in Hawaii. Take care of the kids. I couldn't say it, not like that. She said she loves you, I lied. The lie tasted bitter. Mia's shoulders relaxed a little. Okay. She climbed into my lap without asking, the way she always had, her small body warm against my chest. I wrapped my arms around her and rested my chin on her head, staring over her shoulder at the ghost of my own reflection in the window. Liam appeared a few minutes later, drawn by the smell of toast I forced myself to make. He was quieter, he always watched more than he spoke. You look tired, he said, grabbing a bowl for cereal. Didn't sleep much. Work. The word dug in, something like that, I said. He poured the milk, then paused. Did Mom come home? No, I said. She had to fly out, early, a work thing. He nodded, but his eyes lingered on me a little too long. He didn't press. He was old enough to know when a door was being closed in front of him. After breakfast, I moved through the apartment like a stranger. Every object seemed to hum with her absence. Her mug on the drying rack, her book half open on the nightstand, spine cracked at some chapter she'd never finish here, the sweater she'd left draped over the back of the couch. I checked the closet. 3 of her suitcases were gone. The hangers at her side of the wardrobe looked thinned out, uneven. She hadn't packed in a panic. She hadn't left with one bag and a rushed goodbye. she had chosen, deliberately, quietly. I found the plane ticket confirmation in our shared email later that morning, when the kids were in their rooms and the apartment was unusually silent. The subject line was bland, your flight itinerary. Her name, one way, 2 seats. There it was, proof of the we. No kids listed, just her, and someone else. The second passenger field was filled with a name I'd never heard before, Ethan Cole. My heart stuttered. The email thread went back weeks. Not one message, but several. Date changes, seat selections, special requests, all forwarded to a separate email address I didn't recognize. There was a second browser tab open too, still sitting there from the last time she'd used this laptop. A resort website, white sand, blue pools, smiling couples holding hands under palm trees. I closed the laptop too fast, my hands shaking. It wasn't just that she'd gone. It was that she had been building a second life right next to me, brick by invisible brick, while I washed dishes and packed lunches and told myself distance was normal. The first night without her, sleep wouldn't come. Every sound in the apartment felt amplified. The ticking clock, the distant sirens, the neighbor's footsteps above. I lay in bed staring at the cracked line of light at the bottom of the kid's bedroom door, listening to Liam's soft snores and Mia's occasional sleepy murmur. My phone lay on the nightstand, her message still unanswered. We're in Hawaii, take care of the kids. Take care of the kids, like they were a responsibility she'd signed over, like they were a chore. At 2:07 a.m., I got out of bed and walked to the kitchen. The city outside the window was a lattice of sodium orange and darkness. Rain had stopped, leaving everything slick. I made coffee even though my hands didn't need more shaking. The routine helped. Filter, scoop, pour. When the machine hummed to life, I opened her drawer, not the cutlery one. The junk one that's not really junk. The place where she kept things that mattered. Old birthday cards, ticket stubs, some scribbled notes she didn't want to throw away yet. They were all still there. A receipt from the diner where we'd had our first real fight and then made up over pie. A faded Polaroid of us at some friend's wedding, her lipstick smudged, my tie crooked, both of us laughing. A post-it note with my handwriting. We'll figure it out, I promise. I had written that years ago, after the miscarriage, when we'd sat on the bathroom floor together, backs against the tub, holding each other while the future we'd already started to love drained quietly away. She had kept that note, tucked in here safe. So when had the version of her who saved my bad handwriting and old promises become the woman who booked 2 tickets to Hawaii with a man named Ethan? The next day, I called her office. "Hi, this is Mark," I said, forcing my voice steady. "Can I speak to Anna?" There was a pause, the faint clicking of a keyboard. "I'm sorry, she's on leave," the receptionist said. "On leave." "Yes, she filed the request last week." "Last week? Do you have a number where she can be reached?" "I only have her cell on file." "Right," I said, "of course." I hung up before she could ask anything else. On the kitchen table, my phone buzzed. A group chat notification popped up. Parents from Mia's class organizing a bakery fundraiser. I typed nothing. How do you reply to normal when your life just split in half? I spent the days keeping the kids' routine intact like it was the only thing holding us in place. School drop-offs, homework, dinner, bedtime stories. I overcompensated in little ways. Extra syrup on pancakes. An extra 10 minutes of screen time. Sure, we can build the blanket fort tonight. At night, though, when the apartment got quiet again, my mind turned to him. Ethan. I imagined a dozen versions of him, younger, fitter, richer. Someone who listened better than I had, someone who asked her questions and really heard the answers. I hated him and envied him in rotating shifts. One evening, after the kids had gone to bed, I sat back down at the laptop. The guilt felt immediate and sharp, like I was violating something, but what boundary was there left to protect? Her email was still logged in. I typed Ethan into the search bar. The thread filled the screen, lines of subject headers. "You were right about that place. Can't stop thinking about earlier. I booked it." I didn't open all of them. I couldn't, just one. Somewhere in the middle, the language was careful, no explicit descriptions. But intimacy doesn't need graphic words to reveal itself. They had inside jokes, shared complaints, little observations about their day I hadn't heard from her in months. She mentioned me once. "Mark's a good dad," she'd written. "He tries." Sometimes I feel guilty. Sometimes that word lodged in my chest. I skimmed another email, her talking about how tired she felt, how invisible, how she wasn't sure who she was anymore. "I feel like the ghost of the girl I used to be," she'd written to him, not to me. I closed the laptop gently this time, my throat tight. It would have been easier if she'd painted me as a monster. If she'd written that I yelled or hit or controlled, then at least there would be a clean line. Instead, it was something quieter, sadder, two people drifting. One of them grabbed the first hand extended, and it wasn't mine. That night I sat alone at the dining table, her chair pushed in neatly across from me, and realized something ugly. I had noticed her pulling away. I had felt it, like a slow leak in a tire. But I had been tired too, tired from work. From bills, from being on for the kids. Every time she tried to talk about how empty she felt, I had a habit of offering solutions instead of listening. We can take a trip. Things will calm down after this quarter. We just have to get through this year. Why? A different we. I rubbed my eyes with the heels of my palms. Somewhere across an ocean, she was on a beach with a man whose name I'd only known for 24 hours. Maybe she was laughing. Maybe she was crying. Maybe she was pretending none of us existed. My phone buzzed. A new email notification. Her name in the preview line. For a second my heart kicked, stupidly hopeful. Maybe she'd written. Maybe she'd explain. Maybe she'd apologize. But when I opened it, it was automated. A security alert. New sign-in from a different device. A different device, different place, different life. I stared at the screen until it blurred. In the reflection of the darkened kitchen window, I saw myself sitting alone at the table, framed by an empty chair, in an apartment that suddenly felt too big. The clock ticked past midnight. Rain started again, tapping softly at the glass, like knuckles that never meant to knock loud enough to be heard. And in that quiet, with the sound of rain and the hum of the fridge and the faint buzz of a street lamp outside, one thought finally landed with the full weight of its truth. She hadn't just left, she had chosen someone else, and I was going to have to learn how to live a whole life inside the space that choice left behind. She came back on a Tuesday. By then, 3 weeks had passed. 3 weeks of holding the center so tight my knuckles ached. School runs, bills, laundry, parent-teacher conferences. There is something brutally mundane about surviving heartbreak with children. You don't get to fall apart in poetic ways. You still have to sign permission slips and check math homework and remember that the blue lunchbox is Mia's, not Liam's. We'd settled into a strange, lopsided routine. Her absence had become a shape in the apartment. An empty hook where her coat used to hang, a hollow in the wardrobe, a second toothbrush slowly drying out, unused. The kids stopped asking when she'd be home every day. The questions came less frequently, then landed heavier when they did. Did she call? Can we talk to her? Is she okay? Sometimes I'd say, she's figuring some things out. Sometimes I'd say, she loves you. That last one I clung to, even when I didn't know if it was still true. On that Tuesday evening, rain had returned, steady and patient. The apartment was dim, lit by the yellow glow over the stove and the TV's flicker from the living room. I was folding laundry on the couch, matching small socks with the kind of focus people reserve for surgery. Liam was sprawled on the floor doing homework. Mia sat cross-legged, drawing silently, tongue peeking out in concentration. The doorbell rang. It was a simple sound, unremarkable, but something in me knew. Before I'd even stood up, my heart was already pounding in my ears. Stay here, I said. My voice came out too fast. I walked down the short hallway to the door. My hand hovered over the handle for a second longer than necessary. Then I opened it. She stood there, damp from the rain, hair tied back in a loose knot. No suitcase. Just a small backpack slung over one shoulder. For a second, we both froze. The hallway light above us buzzed faintly. Hey, she said, hey. The word felt impossibly small between us. She looked thinner. Her skin darker, like she'd collected sun in all the places I hadn't been. There were new lines at the corners of her eyes. Her gaze slid past me into the apartment, flicking over the shoes by the door, the clustered school bags, the familiar mess of our life. Can I come in? She asked. I swallowed, stepped back, nodded. She slipped past me, the familiar scent of her shampoo bringing with it a wave of memory so strong I had to steady myself against the doorframe. Mornings when she'd buried her face into my chest. Afternoons on the couch when we'd fallen asleep half watching some show, the weight of her asleep on my shoulder on long train rides. In the living room, the TV sound dimmed as Liam grabbed the remote. Mia's pencil stopped midline. Mom. Mia's voice cracked on the word. Anna's hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes filled instantly. Hey, baby, she said, voice breaking. Mia ran to her. Anna dropped the backpack and sank to her knees, arms open. The hug was fierce, desperate. Mia clung to her like she was afraid she'd dissolve if she let go. I missed you, Mia sobbed. I missed you too, Anna whispered into her hair. Liam hung back a few steps, arms crossed over his chest. He was trying to look older than he felt. Anna stood slowly, wiping her cheeks. Hey, champ, she said, almost shy. He stared at her. You left, he said. No accusation in his tone, just fact. Her shoulders flinched anyway. I know, she said. I'm so sorry. He held her gaze for a long moment, then looked away. Are you staying? The room seemed to hold its breath. Her eyes flicked to mine. For the first time since she'd walked in, she seemed to remember I was there. Can we talk? She asked quietly. I nodded, throat too tight to answer. Mia, sweetheart, I said, forcing my voice steady. Why don't you go finish your drawing in your room? Liam, you too. We'll talk later, okay? Mia looked like she wanted to protest, but didn't. Liam nodded once too sharply, then turned and walked down the hallway. When their door clicked shut, the apartment felt bigger again. Anna stood in the middle of the living room, arms wrapped around herself. She looked smaller that way. So, I said, it was the only word that made it out. I didn't know how else to come back, she said, voice trembling. I kept rehearsing something on the plane, and it all sounded stupid. The plane, I repeated. From Hawaii. She flinched again, yes. Silence stretched between us, heavy and uncomfortable. So how was it? I asked, the words leaving my mouth before I could soften them. The resort looked nice. Her eyes closed, tears slipping out even as she pressed her lips together. I deserve that, she whispered. Deserve. The word tasted like metal. I read your emails, I said. Her eyes snapped open. How many? Enough. She nodded slowly, as if confirming some internal sentence. I won't lie, she said. His name is Ethan. We've been talking for a while. It started at work. Of course it did. He listened, she continued softly. We worked late. We complained about the same people. It felt harmless at first. At first, I echoed. She swallowed. I was lonely, Mark. The quiet honesty of it stabbed deeper than any accusation. I was here, I said. I know, she said. That was the worst part. You were here and I still felt alone. I sank onto the edge of the armchair, suddenly exhausted. You could have told me, I said. I tried, she said, so many times. But every time I opened my mouth, it turned into a logistical conversation. Schedules, money, we'll go on a trip when things calm down. We were supposed to be on the same team, I said. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. I know, she repeated. I don't have a good excuse, I don't. It was selfish and cowardly and cruel. I knew that even while I was doing it. Yet you still went, I said. She nodded, took a shaky breath. I wanted to know what it felt like to be chosen first again, she said, staring at the floor. To be looked at like I was alive, not just mom, or can you pick up milk, or did you pay the gas bill? The words landed in me like stones. I never stopped loving you, she whispered. That's the sick part. I just also loved who I was when I was with him. I let that sit in the room. The rain pattered lightly against the windows, the steady rhythm filling spaces our words couldn't reach. Did he know about the kids? I asked. Yes, she said, from the beginning. And me. Yes. But he went anyway. So did I, she said. That's on both of us. I stared at the framed photo on the shelf beside her. The four of us at the park last summer, squinting into the sun, arms wrapped around each other. Grass stains on Mia's knees. Liam's hair sticking up in 5 directions, her smile wide and effortless. Is he waiting for you? I asked. She hesitated. No, she said finally. He wanted me to stay. In Hawaii's. In that life, she said softly, and you didn't. I couldn't, she said. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mia's face when she scraped her knee at the playground. Liam's expression when he solved that stupid Rubik's Cube. You making pancakes on Sunday. It was like I had stepped through a door and realized halfway I'd left my lungs behind. Her voice broke. I thought it would feel like freedom, she whispered. It just felt like drowning somewhere beautiful. We sat in silence. Her words hung in the air between us, fragile and raw. You texted, I said eventually. We're in Hawaii. Take care of the kids. She winced like I'd slapped her. I know, she said. I was a coward. I didn't want to hear your voice. I didn't want to hear you break. So you let me do it alone, I said quietly. You handed me the fallout and went to the beach. Tears streamed down her face unchecked now. There's nothing I can say that makes that okay, she whispered. There isn't. I won't try to spin it. Why are you here, Anna? I asked. She looked up. Met my gaze because I don't want that life, she said. Not like that, not built on this. She gestured vaguely between us, meaning the wreckage. And what do you want? I asked. She opened her mouth, closed it. Shook her head, frustrated. I want my kids, she said. I want to be their mother again. I want to try to be a better version of myself than the one who got on that plane. And me. Her shoulders sagged. I don't know if I deserve you, she said. I don't know if I ever will again. I don't know if you'll ever look at me without seeing him. I don't know if I can ask you for anything beyond what you're already doing. So you want forgiveness, I said. I want the chance to earn it, she corrected, voice barely above a whisper. The distinction mattered. I looked at her, really looked, and saw past the tan and the fatigue and the guilt to the woman I had built a life with. The one who had held my hand in hospital waiting rooms, who had fallen asleep with a baby on her chest, hair a mess, t-shirt stained with milk, and still looked like the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And I saw, too, the woman who had typed, "We're in Hawaii," and turned her phone to airplane mode. Both were her. There was no version that erased the other. I don't know what this looks like, I said finally. Me neither, she whispered. The quiet between us shifted, not lighter, not darker, just different. From the hallway a floorboard creaked. We both turned. Liam stood there, half hidden by the corner, eyes shining. How long have you been listening? I asked gently. Long enough, he said. His gaze flicked between us, searching for something I didn't know how to give. Are you and Mom okay? He asked. Anna took a breath, then stopped herself. She looked at me. I met her eyes. For once we were on the same page. We're not okay, I said to Liam, but we're here, and we're going to be honest with you. That's where we're starting. Liam's jaw tightened. He nodded slowly. Okay, he said. He looked at Anna. Are you staying here tonight? Anna opened her mouth, then hesitated. I brought a bag, she said, but if you all need space, I can get a hotel. The thought of her in some anonymous room, alone with her guilt, twisted something in me. You can stay in the guest room, I said quietly. She looked at me like I'd handed her something fragile and undeserved. Thank you, she whispered. As I went to pull clean sheets from the closet, the soft patter of rain against the windows followed me down the hall, an old, familiar sound in a home that suddenly felt like a new, uncertain country. And in that liminal space, between her leaving and her return, between hurt and whatever came next, I realized that forgiveness, if it ever came, would not arrive all at once like a sunrise. It would be more like this rain, soft, intermittent, falling in small, hesitant intervals over a long, gray season. Mornings changed first. Before, they had been chaotic, two adults bumping into each other in a narrow kitchen, grabbing coffee, packing lunches, shouting reminders over the sound of the blender and cartoon theme songs. Now the kitchen was quieter. The chaos had softened into something more careful. Anna woke earlier than she used to. She moved softly, as if trying not to disturb the air itself. At first, she stayed in the guest room. The door closed at night, a visible line between us. Some nights, light showed under the crack until long past midnight. We didn't pretend things were normal. The kids knew. We told them in the simplest language we could that Mom had made a big mistake, that grown-up feelings are complicated, that none of it was their fault. They absorbed it in different ways. Mia clung to me, to Anna, to routines. She'd reach for Anna's hand when they crossed the street, then look at me to make sure it was okay. Liam withdrew. He spent more time in his room, headphones on, eyes wary whenever Anna walked in. She didn't push. She knocked. She asked permission. She accepted one-word answers without flinching. In the evenings, after the kids were in bed, we sat at the kitchen table and talked in low voices. Not about Hawaii, not about Ethan. Not about the details of the betrayal, those we'd already bled through in those first raw days. We talked about practical things, schedules, therapy appointments, boundaries. She found a therapist. I did too. Later, we found one for the kids. On rainy days, the apartment felt suspended in gray. Those were the days when my chest felt the heaviest, when images of her on some sunlit beach would flash uninvited across my mind. I'd picture her laughing with him, hair in the wind, free of all this. Then I'd see her now, rinsing plates in our sink, brows knit, shoulders slightly hunched, as if carrying a weight she no longer tried to ignore. She reached out in small ways, leaving a cup of coffee by my usual spot at the table, sending a text in the middle of the day, "How's your afternoon?" Pausing, hand on the door to say, "Drive safe," before I left for work. None of it erased the ache, but they were stitches in a wound that refused to stay open. One morning, a few months after her return, the rain finally broke. I woke to a different kind of light, pale but clean, slipping around the edges of the blinds. The apartment was quiet in that crystalline way it gets right before everyone wakes up. I padded into the kitchen barefoot. Anna was there, already dressed, hair still damp from a shower, a mug cradled in both hands, steam curled up around her face. She didn't startle when she saw me. We were past that now. "Morning," she said, "morning." I moved around her to reach the cabinet. We'd learned a new choreography, how not to brush against each other unless one of us meant it. She watched me for a moment, then quietly. I put fresh coffee on." "Thank you." I poured a cup. The silence between us was no longer jagged, just tentative. "Therapist thinks I should move out," she said suddenly. I paused mid-sip. "Oh." She nodded, eyes dropping to the swirl of coffee in her mug. She says staying here, in this limbo, might be confusing for everyone, that I'm asking for forgiveness but not giving you space to really decide what you want. The words settled heavily between us. What do you want? I asked quietly. She took a slow breath. I want whatever causes you and the kids the least long-term damage, she said. If that means I move out, then I'll do it. I'll find a place nearby, something small. I'll pay child support. I'll show up when I say I will. I'll keep doing the work, even if we're not together. Her voice shook on that last line, but she didn't cry. She'd done enough of that, so had I. Do you still love him? I asked. The question surprised both of us. She considered it, really considered it, instead of reflexively denying it. I loved what he reflected back at me, she said slowly. The version of myself I thought I'd lost, but that version came with blind spots, with cruelty. I can't separate that now. And me. She met my eyes. I love you, she said simply. But I don't get to ask you to love me the same way again. That's yours to decide. I leaned against the counter, the mug warm in my hands. In the months since she'd returned, the initial shock had cooled into something steadier. The anger still flared sometimes, sharp and sudden, like the first time I saw a Hawaii ad on TV and had to leave the room, or when Mia drew a picture of our family and carefully drew a line between me and Anna, as if mapping a fault line. But layered under the anger was something else, tiredness, a strange, budding kindness for both of us, maybe, for the younger versions who had meant every vow, and for the current versions trying to navigate the ruins without completely burning them down. Do you want to move out? I asked. She stared at the window over the sink. Morning light spilled across the counter, illuminating the faint scratches in the laminate, the water ring from someone's cup. No, she said, I don't. I like waking up knowing I can make the kids breakfasts, ask about their days. I like hearing your laugh even if it's not for me, but liking something doesn't make it fair. We stood there, the quiet stretching, not hostile, just full. What if we stop asking what we like, I said eventually, and ask what's honest? She nodded slowly. Honestly, she said, I think you need room to see who you are without me in your shadow. Not the man who got left or the man who took me back, but just you. And you. She smiled sadly. I need to learn how to be a person who doesn't run away to be seen, she said. Who doesn't light a match just to feel warmth. Outside, a car door slammed. Somewhere a dog barked. Life, indifferent, kept moving. I thought about the night in the chair with the rain outside, her text burning into my retinas. I thought about her on the doorstep that Tuesday, small backpack, voice shaking. I thought about Liam's hurt eyes, Mia's tentative hands. A year ago, if someone had asked me what letting go looked like, I would have described something dramatic. A shouted argument, a slammed door, suitcases rolling down the hall. But now, standing barefoot in our kitchen, coffee cooling in my hands, I understood it was quieter than that. Letting go in our case wasn't about erasing or pretending or even punishing. It was about releasing each other from the weight of being who we used to be. I think your therapist is right, I said. Her shoulders lifted, then fell. She nodded once, twice. Okay, she whispered. We'll tell the kids together, I said. This weekend. We'll tell them you're getting a place nearby, that this doesn't mean you're leaving them again. That we're changing shape, not disappearing. Her lip trembled. Thank you for saying we, she murmured. We still share them, I said. We always will. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. I'll start looking today, she said. Something small. Maybe with a little balcony or something, so they can plant their stupid herbs. I smiled despite myself. Those herbs are thriving. That's because you water them, she said softly. We fell into a fragile rhythm over the next weeks. Evenings spent sketching out a custody schedule at the same table where we'd once made vacation plans. Conversations about rent and deposits instead of resorts and flights. The kids took the news with the kind of resilience that breaks your heart. Are you getting divorced? Liam asked, straight to the point. We're separating, I said. We don't know yet what the paperwork will be called. But we do know we both love you. That doesn't change. Mia frowned. Will Mom still come to my dance recital? Yes, Anna said immediately. If you want me there. Dumb, Mia said, rolling her eyes with relief. The first morning after she moved out, the apartment felt hollow in a new way. Her shoes were gone from by the door, her coat hook empty. The guest room, stripped of her few things, looked like a paused thought. I made coffee in the silence. No soft footsteps behind me, no extra mug beside mine. The kids were with her that night in her new place. I'd helped carry boxes up the narrow stairs, assembled a cheap bookshelf, hung a curtain rod that didn't quite sit straight. The place was small but full of light. There was, in fact, a little balcony, barely big enough for 2 chairs and a row of herbs in mismatched pots. Mia had claimed the balcony immediately. Liam had tested every outlet with his phone charger like a building inspector. When I left, Anna had walked me to the door. "Text me when you get home," she'd asked. I'd raised an eyebrow. "Old habits," she said, shrugging. "I'd still care if you're safe." That night in my own bed, the empty space felt different than it had when she was in Hawaii. Back then, the emptiness had been jagged, all sharp edges and unanswered questions. Now it was cleaner. Not painless, but less poisoned. Morning light slid in across the ceiling, tracing slow-moving patterns as cars passed outside. I made coffee and stood by the window with my mug, watching the city wake. Rain had washed the streets during the night. Everything looked slightly sharper, like someone had adjusted the focus. My phone buzzed, a photo from Anna, me on the tiny balcony, hair a mess, grinning, hands covered in soil. Liam behind her pretending not to smile, holding a small pot with a basil sprout. "Morning from the herb farm," her text read. I stared at the image for a long moment. My chest hurt. In that deep, stretching way that comes right before a long breath, I typed back, "Looks good. Tell them I love them. I'll call tonight." "Will do," she replied. "Coffee okay this morning?" I looked at my half-finished mug. "Yeah," I wrote. "Coffee's okay." The apartment was quiet, not empty exactly, just mine for the moment. I walked through each room slowly. The kids' drawings on the fridge, the dent in the couch cushion where Mia always curled up. The small chip in the bedroom door from the time Liam had slammed it too hard and we'd all laughed. Our life was still here, changed, rearranged, but not destroyed. By the window, the morning light softened, warming the floorboards, making the air itself look a little less gray. Letting go, I realized, didn't mean closing the door on the past and never looking back. It meant acknowledging that the story did not go the way you thought it would, and still choosing to step into the next chapter with open eyes, not for the promise of a new love, or a perfect ending, or some cinematic redemption arc, but for the simple, quiet possibility of mornings like this. Coffee in hand. Rain-washed streets below, kids' laughter saved in your phone, a life that had broken and somehow stubbornly kept going. I took another sip of coffee, let the warmth spread, and for the first time since the text that shattered everything, allowed myself to believe that even in the ruins of what we'd been, there was room for something honest and gentle to grow. Maybe not with her. Maybe not in the way we once imagined, but with myself, with my kids, in the soft, forgiving light of an ordinary morning. Maybe not with her. Maybe not in the way we once imagined, but with myself, with my kids, in the soft, forgiving light of an ordinary morning.